Hello, hello, hey, sweet people. Welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. My name is Foster. I'm an English teacher, a podcaster, naturally. And normally I host this show with Alexia, who all of you know and love. But today we have someone else that maybe you know, and I certainly love very much, my dad.
Hey, Foster. How's it going?
It's going swimmingly. Doing great. How are you?
Good. That's a nice term. You need to explain that.
I've definitely explained that on the show before.
Good.
Swimmingly means really good.
Outstanding.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent.
Swell.
Wonderful. Swell. That's a good one.
Splendid.
Yeah.
Swimmingly has a happy connotation to it.
Yeah, almost like
I'm doing great.
things are so good. It's
They
like
are
almost
good. They're good.
goofy good.
Good.
Okay, enough of that. Today on the show, this is your recommendation, Dad. We're talking about music.
We are talking about music.
I talk about music a lot on the show. Generally, I talk about it within the context of language and kind of using music as an analogy for language. I think the process of learning a musical instrument is essentially the same as learning a new language. But today, I wanted to talk about music, about your music, about...
Well, talk about our music. I would like to think I've given you a lot of things. I mean, your handsome, good looks and your intelligence. No, those all came from your mom. But I did give you your love of music because I've just been a music buff since my teenage years, and I think you and your brother both have inherited that from me.
Yeah, we all love music. It's a very important part of our lives, and I definitely credit you with, it's hard for me because on mom's side of the family, I grew up with people that could actually play music, and then on your side of the family, it's just people that love good old rock and roll.
Well, it is one of the things that make me feel swimmingly.
Cool. So the original idea when we had you on the show was to give recommendations of all of the things we've watched during quarantine. And one of the things we watched was a documentary about Bob Dylan. And Dad, I know you're a big Dylan fan. And to be honest, I never really was until after watching this documentary.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a different generation. I mean, Dylan's older than I am, but I grew up listening to Dylan's middle years, which was a little more rocky, with some really, really good albums.
A little more rocky, you're trying to say, kind of more rock and roll, more drums, guitars.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a fantastic documentary that really, really focused on his early years and his early influences, and I mean, Dylan is. I mean, he was really the poet of the '60s. He wrote just the catchiest, most memorable songs, and his lyrics were. He could turn a phrase like no one, and yeah, really enjoyed that. So if you aren't into Dylan, you'll still enjoy this a lot, and you'll learn a lot about American culture in the '60s and '70s.
Yeah, it's a disclaimer. It's a very long documentary.
Yeah,
I think it's over
hours,
3 hours, and it was a Martin Scorsese production, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Scorsese, The Godfather, all of that stuff. Two things, Dad. I can actually explain this because I know you will give strange definitions. You said Dylan could always write things that are very catchy. If something's catchy, it's like it catches your attention. There's a hook. You can't stop singing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you also said he could really turn a phrase.
Yeah.
You used that same expression the other day talking about another artist, Jason Isbell. What does turn a phrase mean?
Well, I forgot that I said that, and now looking back, they both can take a simple subject and write about it in a way that makes you really think, makes you stop and say, "Wow!" I mean, the way they're describing that, the way they're describing that emotion or describing that feeling, is just so unique that it truly is poetry. And Jason Isbell has that same gift too.
Yeah.
They're not trying just, silly love songs. They're really, really meaningful, meaty, powerful lyrics.
A turn of phrase is just like a great line. It is poetry, but not the way that most people will think of, like reading Shakespeare. It's just something that just hits you in your heart.
Right.
Yeah. So, Dad, my intuition tells me that most Brazilians, they absolutely know who Bob Dylan is, but kind of like me, it's like Bob Dylan. I've heard like Mr. Tambourine Man or something, but his voice kind of sucks and don't really listen to him. So can you give just like a brief overview of who he was, why he's so important, and why you like him?
Well, you don't listen to Bob Dylan for his voice by any means. I mean, it's a scruffy, gravelly voice. Sometimes it's hard to understand. But he's put his poems to music, and they are lyrically, they're impeccable. But the music behind it is very accessible. It's not. It's very listenable. So you can listen to it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, simple songs.
Simple songs, but he would write. He has songs that some of them are 10 or 12 minutes long, and he doesn't repeat a chorus. He's telling stories that are just these epic songs that are just they're captivating. But his early years, he was kind of in that beatnik generation, the early 60s.
What is a beatnik?
Beatnik was kind of counterculture against the establishment. This was after World War II and kind of right in before Vietnam, and it was marijuana use had just started, and kids were
60s culture.
60s,
I believe beatnik comes from like beat poetry, like Alan Watts and all those guys.
Guys sitting around playing bongos and
wearing black turtlenecks and being weird.
And he was in, he came from Kansas City or someplace in the Midwest, so he wasn't in like this. He wasn't in New York City or Chicago, but he ended up being in New York. But started early. His first couple albums are still available. That's a great place to start. My favorite album was in the early 70s, which has a lot of better, a little more harder rock songs.
Do you know the names of those albums?
Blood on the Tracks.
Blood on the Tracks is
the album.
Your favorite album that's a little bit harder rock?
That's my favorite Dylan album by far. Yeah.
And what's kind of the quintessential album? It's called
Highway 61 Revisited.
Highway 61 Revisited. Yeah. That's the one with his most famous songs.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's like Lay Lady Lay and Like a Rolling Stone and those kind of things. So, yeah.
Do you have a favorite Dylan song?
Tangled Up in Blue.
Nice.
That's my favorite.
I think it would be hard for me to say. I think I would say Girl from the North Country.
Yeah, good. That's a little off the beaten path. That's good.
Yeah. Cool. So talking about music more generally, it's impossible to have a conversation with my dad talking about music without talking about the Allman Brothers. So, Dad, what do you think? Do you want to explain who the Allman Brothers are, or do you think that would be just an entire episode that you could talk about for hours?
We don't have enough time. It's just to say that they're the greatest rock and roll band of all time, in my estimation. Everybody has their favorites for one reason or another, and I listen to all kinds of music. With the Allman Brothers being a Southern band, I just adore their sound. It's just something. They're fantastic musicians. It's a mix of blues, jazz, country, hard rock, in a way that I've never heard before. But I listen to them every day and know every note.
So?
Know every note on every album they've ever put out. But they are my favorites, and they influenced a a lot of folks.
Yeah,
but
I don't know how famous the Allman Brothers are internationally.
probably not not as big as I would think they are, but
No,
there were pockets of place. I know they were big in Germany, and but
yeah, but it's interesting because like in most of the U.S., the Allman Brothers are very well considered as like one of the greatest rock bands of all time.
yeah.
But internationally, they're not like the Rolling Stones or like Pink Floyd, where everyone knows them.
Well, they didn't get much radio play, and that it's not they weren't top 40 by any means. But very accessible. Check out the Allman Brothers Band.
Do you have any recommendations on where to start if people are interested?
If you only want to listen to one album,
It's got to be
Live at the Fillmore.
Oh.
No, Live at the Fillmore is the best. I'll say it is the best live rock recording ever made.
Yeah. Will give the caveat that Live at the Fillmore, these are going to be like 15, 20-minute songs with really long solos.
30-minute songs, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say the best place to start just to see if you like the sound or not, probably Eat a Peach, right?
Well, Eat a Peach was the follow-up to Fillmore East, and it has a whole live set. So half that album is live and half of it's things. But Eat a Peach is great. Eat a Peach is the first album after Dwayne died. Dwayne Allman was the guitar player, mentor, leader of the band. And they carried on without him. And the sound changed completely, but they were still great.
Yeah. So they're actually brothers, Greg and Dwayne Allman. Greg died how many years ago?
He died 1972.
Greg.
Greg just died 2 years ago.
Yeah. So Greg Allman died 2 years ago. He was
70,
main songwriter.
He was 72 years old, and his brother Dwayne died when he was 26 years old.
In a motorcycle accident.
Yeah. Not an electric motorcycle, though.
No, not an electric motorcycle.
You got to listen to other podcasts to understand that joke.
Cool. And I really do think the Allman Brothers, it's just a pleasant sound, even if you're not into like classic rock or you don't think that will be your thing. I haven't met many people that don't like the Allman Brothers.
I can't imagine not liking the Allman Brothers.
What sort of sick world would that
exactly.
be?
I mean, everybody's, what CDs would you take with you if you were stranded on a desert island? I'd take 10 Allman Brothers CDs, and I could live the rest of my life. So it'll be good. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dad, for coming on the show. I definitely recommend everyone check out No Direction Home. That is the name of the Bob Dylan documentary. Listen to some Bob Dylan. And definitely check out the Allman Brothers. According to my dad, the greatest band of all time.
No doubt.
Cool. Any last words, Dad?
In that line, if you want another show to watch on Netflix, is called Muscle Shoals, which is a music documentary about a recording studio in Alabama where all the famous people recorded stuff, including Dwayne Allman. So it's just another tie-in.
Yeah, it's a good music doc. A lot of good music documentaries on Netflix.
They are.
You just got to look for them. Cool. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Dad, and we will see you tomorrow.
My pleasure. Bye, Foster.